Good morning. This is Damon Fordham, Professor of History at Virginia College and Charleston Southern University, here with So Exquisite Charleston website and the author of True Stories of Black South Carolina. One of the things that I talk about in my book is a landmark here in the Charleston area known as the Old Hanging Tree, which, as you see directly behind me, it sits in the middle of the corner of Ashley Avenue and Fishburne Street near Burke High School on Charleston's west side. And it's called the Hanging Tree for good reason. Back during the days of slavery, this was where African Americans were hanged, usually for punishment for extreme rebellion. Contrary to popular belief, lynching and all that was not really that common until after slavery. During slavery, of course, they were considered property, so the only time they would actually hang somebody is if they did something like try to kill the master. And as we're about to see, there were a couple of times when this was actually the case. Back in 1937, there was a local African American by the name of Augustus Ladson, and he collected the stories of many ex-slaves in Charleston, including an old man by the name of Elijah Green, who was almost a century old when he was interviewed. And one of the things that Elijah Green told him was the story of the hanging, which I recorded in my book, and it goes as follows. He said that the first two people that was hung in Charleston was Harry and Janie. They were husband and wife and were slaves of Mr. Christopher Black. Mr. Black had them whipped, and Harry and Janie planned to kill the whole family. They poisoned the breakfast one morning, and if two of the family members hadn't overslept, they too would have been dead. The others died almost instantly. An investigation was made, and the two slaves were hung on what he referred to as that big oak tree in the middle of Ashley Avenue, which is this, the very tree that I'm speaking of right now. So if you look at these branches, this tree is a regrowth of the original tree, but you can kind of easily imagine how in an earlier time the branches may have been strong enough to support people in that case. There's also the oral tradition in Charleston was that the slaves involved with the Denmark-Vesey Rebellion were said to have been hanged here. Well, I did some research on that. This book, Designs on Charleston, the trial record of the Denmark-Vesey slave conspiracy of 1822 by Edward Pearson, that has the trial record of the Denmark-Vesey case from 1822. Now, what actually happened was this. Denmark-Vesey himself, the leader of the Great Slave Rebellion discussed in an earlier So Exquisite Charleston video, he was not hanged here. He was hanged in a place called Blake Lands, which was supposed to have been a swampland. But a number of the Vesey rebels were hanged, if we don't know if it's actually at this tree. But we do know that a scaffold was built on Line Street, which is not very far from where we are right now, where several of the Vesey rebels were in fact hanged. And it's an interesting sort of irony that that day, many African Americans who were able to do so in the city of Charleston wore black in mourning over the hanging of the Denmark-Vesey rebels. So one of the things that's interesting about this is that today, most of the people who know about this are elderly people who had had the stories passed down to them, but unfortunately a lot of the younger generation does not know about this. It's important that you realize that whenever you drive past something, there may be some history behind it, because wherever you have a people, you have had a history. This is Damon L. Fordham for So Exquisite Charleston.